your thought record from last week and see how you've been doing since we last spoke. I know we went over a lot about your sister being in town and the panic attacks that you've been dealing with in regards to your thoughts of being a failure and how your communication is still lacking. So we really focused on your hyperventilation and breathing. How has this past week been for you so far with implementing the exercises we went over last week?
Pretty good, I thought. Do you want to see my agenda book?
Yeah, I would love to go over your homework. So you were assigned to write down the sensations and then the thoughts that accompanied those sensations and then the alternative explanations for those thoughts. So your sensation, you wrote tightness in your throat. And then your thought was, my throat is tightening up and I won't be able to breathe. And then your alternative explanation was, this is a harmless sensation of anxiety and it has nothing to do with your breathing. So that's really good. And then your next one, your next sensation was lightheadedness. I'm going to faint. This is a symptom of anxiety or hyperventilation, not fainting. That is correct. Good job. And then another sensation that you wrote down was feeling of unreality. So you thought, what if I'm going to lose it and go crazy? And your alternative explanation was, this is just a harmless sensation of anxiety, which will go away when your anxiety subsides. So it looks like you really grasped onto that. And as you did, the first steps in overcoming panic attacks is to identify the bodily sensations that you're experiencing and the catastrophic thoughts that you're having about those sensations. So it's really important that you separate your thoughts and your sensations. So for example, I feel like I'm going to faint. It's actually a sensation of lightheadedness and a thought or belief that you're about to faint. And then another one, like you feel like you're choking, for an example, is a sensation of tightness in your throat and a thought or a belief that you will choke and not get enough air.
Yes, filling this out really helped me to see things more objectively in that kind of perspective. I really noticed that when I went through this process, how close the relationship is between my thinking and how I feel.
So as we said last week in the agenda that we were really going to muster in on the way you communicate this session, has anything occurred this past week that you may want to tell me about?
Yeah, there was something that happened that was kind of surprising me, actually.
Oh, really? What happened?
Well, it was on Saturday. We already made plans to hang out, and I tried to get her attention with my sister. Everybody was busy, and it was hectic as usual, and she had gone out the night before with some friends. And then she came home already acting very important, and she had so many things to do. And she just kind of brushed me off, and I started to get really angry again and felt those feelings. And I waited until she got off the phone, and I went into the room, and I went up to her, and I said, Mazzy, you are such a brat. And I really never call anybody names at all with anybody.
And what happened?
I don't think she knew whether to be angry or shocked or what. So she just kind of ignored it.
So on one hand, when the feelings build,
I could take them all in and turn them against myself, but in this case, I guess I just turned them on her.
Yeah, so sometimes you just stuff them and you stuff them down, and sometimes it comes out.
Well, this time it came out, Mazzy, you are such a brat.
So could you believe that you said that?
No.
And how do you feel about saying that?
Well, when I said it to her, I was angry. I was beginning to get anxious, but then after I stormed out of the room, I said it to her, and then I stormed out of the room. And I got back into the kitchen, and I waited to see if there was a reaction, and there wasn't. I guess I kind of thought it was funny, but I certainly felt the tension go. I felt like yelling at everyone.
So let's take a moment and see what you could do besides stuff it down or explode and call people names. What could someone do besides, like, what's in the middle? What's the gray area? What do people do with their feelings?
Well, what else could I have done there? What would a normal person do?
Well, I think that is where we should begin for today, on what other ways we can handle and establish a sense of being heard and positive communication. We can do a technique to discuss and practice assertiveness training that you can use in place of either aggressive confrontations or stuffing your feelings. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so really what you want to say in situations where you may be feeling like you are not getting the attention that you need or deserve, you're not being heard, is, hey, Mazzy, or whoever, I would like you to pay attention to what I'm saying in this particular situation.
Mm-hmm. I should have you tell him.
Her.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I should have you tell her. You say it better than me.
Well, let's try and see if you could say it. Let's move right into a role play, okay? So could you imagine that I was Mazzy and that this was Saturday?
I could try.
Okay, so I've just been on the phone, I've walked through the door, I've given you orders, I've asked you questions, I've walked away, and now what are you going to do?
Mazzy, I'm tired of you ignoring me all the time. I think you should stop.
If I say, Frank, you did this, how will that make you feel if I keep telling you, you did this?
Guilty.
Is that going to make you a sympathetic listener?
No.
Okay, so let us use this assertiveness script right here. So when you blank, I feel blank. And make sure you name an emotion there. And I feel like I need you to blank so that I can blank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so does that make sense? Or do you have any questions about that?
No, sounds good.
Okay, so the idea again being that you need to feel heard when you're talking. Okay, so let's try this. You can use the script and I will be Mazzy.
Okay, so when you say we're going to do something, you don't follow through with it, it really makes me feel frustrated, and I really need you to pay attention, acknowledge when I'm talking.
Okay, well thanks for letting me know. I didn't even realize I ignored you. How can I fix that? Maybe I will try to pay more attention to what is going on around me and acknowledge that you are around and let you know that I will be right with you when I get off the phone or whenever I'm done doing whatever I'm doing. Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, so how did that feel?
I felt I was vulnerable and maybe a little bit strange, but more effective.
Okay, so why don't you try it one more time? You kind of worked through it, but get a little bit more concise.
All right.
So, like a little bit more clear.
Okay, so when you ignore me, no, let me start over. When you don't acknowledge me when I'm speaking after we made these plans together, I feel upset and frustrated. And I really need you to acknowledge when I speak to you a little bit more. I need you to feel like I'm heard.
Okay, so when you don't acknowledge that I'm speaking to you, I feel frustrated and upset. I need you to listen and pay attention when I'm speaking, even if it is a nod of acknowledgement so that I can feel heard by you.
Yes.
Okay, so that was my spin on it. So, you go. How do you want it to sound?
When I'm not heard or I don't feel acknowledged, I feel very upset and overwhelmed, and I really need a bit more effort from you. Perhaps if you are busy, just acknowledging what I am saying would make me feel like I know you heard me.
So how assertive did that feel?
Well, I was trying not to sound blamey.
Right. So mine had more of a clear parameter. Does it need to be that clear, or what do you think within your life?
Well, I just want some type of acknowledgement.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a little bit more work to do, kind of hone in on how exactly it needs to sound.
Right.
But I think we're kind of seeing that assertive communication is nice and it's clear with some kind of clear asks as well.
So having more of that boundary or an expectation.
Yes, so that, I think that you can look at that a lot of different ways, but if you have a nice, clear ask, then there's no questions. There's no kind of pushing back and saying, I don't know what you really mean, or that kind of stuff.
Right.
It makes it quite overt. So why don't we continue to script that out at your next session, but in the meantime, you can use different ways of this assertive training technique as your homework to kind of implement the way you assert your needs this week.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So just as a recap, we went over your thought process in regards to hyperventilation, and we talked about that for a little bit. We set an agenda, and we went over your thought record and how your different thoughts and sensations came up to thoughts, and then you had alternative thoughts for those. We also went over your communication barriers in a situation that had happened this past weekend, and we did some role plays for assertiveness technique training. Do you have any feedback for me today or anything else that you wanted to add?
I think you really hit on everything really, really well with the communication and how to just, get my point across and in a very calm and respectful manner. And so everything was really good.
Okay, good. Do you think that you'll be able to continue it outside of the office as your homework this week?
Yeah, I can definitely try it.
Okay. And as always, continue your thought record because I think it's very helpful. Practice makes perfect in that, especially with your hyperventilation. And I think it'll be a really good calming technique for you to be able to.
It is very therapeutic.
Right. And it'll be like a concrete thing that you can read.
Yes.
Good. Okay, well, I'll see you next week then.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.